He was a billionaire who had lost something very precious. It could have cost him everything, but a poor construction worker found it and returned it without knowing who he was. Why would someone so poor return something so valuable? And how did this simple act change their lives forever? Discover how a billionaire fell in love with a construction worker who helped him in his distress. At the heart of the slum lived a young woman named Caroline. She was only 24 years old, but had the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Every day before sunrise, she tied a scarf around her rough hair, slipped on her torn boots, and walked to the dusty construction site farther away. Caroline wasn't like the other workers. She carried blocks on her head, mixed cement with a shovel, and pushed wheelbarrows full of sand without a single complaint. Caroline sweated under the scorching sun, earning her money the hard way. Life had never been fair to her. When she was just 10 years old, her parents died in a bus accident on their way back from the village. No one came to her aid. No family member took them in. She found herself alone with her two younger siblings, Daniel, who was only 8, and Blessing, who was just 6. From then on, Caroline became their mother, father, and hope. At first, she sold bread by the roadside, then she washed people's laundry. When that wasn't enough, she begged a mason to teach her how to work on a site. That's how she started carrying blocks to survive. But despite the hardships, she never complained. Sometimes, when her hands trembled from the work, she would sit on the edge of the building, look up at the sky and whisper, "One day, things will change." She had no idea that change was closer than she thought. Not far away, in the same city, lived a young billionaire named Vincent. He was 30 years old, tall, calm, and very reserved. His face was always in the magazines. His name was on billboards. He owned 2 large real estate companies, one in Nigeria and one in the United States. Everyone talked about his wealth, but there was something people didn't know about Vincent. He didn't like noise. He didn't go to clubs. He distrusted fake smiles. Vincent was born into wealth, but he wasn't proud of it. His mother, a kind woman with gentle eyes, always told him, "Respect everyone, no matter how small they are. True wealth lies in how you treat others." And he listened. Yet despite all his money, cars, and houses, something was missing. Vincent had never found the ideal woman. Many women came into his life, beautiful, rich, well-dressed, but something was always off. They acted like love, but it smelled of greed. He always said he wanted an authentic woman, a virtuous one, not one who loves my money, but one who understands pain, one who sees me. Not just what I have, but what Vincent didn't know was that this woman was very close. Fate was already writing their story, and very soon, these two so different, so distant, would collide, but in an unexpected way. After more than 10 years of living and working in the United States, Vincent decided to return to Nigeria. He didn't come back to show off, but for vacation. He wanted a few months of peace to rest, visit some land he owned in different parts of the city, and enjoy simple moments. In the morning, Vincent woke up lighthearted. He decided to go shopping and inspect one of his properties. He wore a plain green t-shirt, jeans, and a cap. No suit, no fancy car, just him and one of his usual black SUVs. "I just want to breathe today," he said as he grabbed his car keys. He drove to a nearby supermarket not far from the land he planned to inspect. Inside, Vincent picked up some snacks, drinks, toothpaste, and other essentials. He smiled at the cashier, paid for everything, and carefully slipped his black wallet into his back pocket. But as he headed to his car, something fell. He didn't notice. It was his wallet. That wallet contained everything: his American driver's license, 2 foreign credit cards, his Nigerian ID, business cards, and over $2,000 in cash. As he got into his car, he felt so calm. He even opened a bottle of water and sipped it slowly before starting the engine. He had no idea what he had just lost. He was about to be shaken. That morning, Caroline was heading to the site, but she had woken up a little hungry. So she decided to stop by the supermarket to buy a drink and snacks. She counted the money in her bag twice to make sure it was enough. After shopping, she quietly exited the supermarket. But something caught her eye near the parking lot. A black wallet. She paused. She looked around. No one seemed to be searching for anything. She approached, bent down slowly, and picked it up. It was heavy, She looked inside and saw a lot of foreign money, business cards, and some documents. Caroline's eyes widened. "Ah, who left their wallet here?" she asked softly. She took a step back, opened the wallet, and saw the business cards. She picked one and tried to read the number, but it had an international code. There was no WhatsApp contact and no Nigerian number listed. She tried calling the foreign number, but the connection failed. For a moment, she looked around again. No one had come back to search for anything. She could have walked away. No one would have known. But something deep inside her said no. She went back to the supermarket and headed straight to the checkout. "Excuse me," she said. "I found this wallet outside near the parking lot. I think it fell out of someone's pocket." The cashier looked surprised. "You mean someone lost this kind of wallet?" she asked. Caroline nodded. "Yes. Please, hand it over to security. When the owner arrives, please return it to him." The cashier stared at her. "You are a kind person. Thank you." She took the wallet and left. At the gas station not far from the supermarket, Vincent pulled over and got out of his car. The attendant approached him with a smile. "Good morning, sir. Full tank?" the young man asked. "Yes, please," Vincent replied. "Card or cash?" the attendant asked. "Debit," said Vincent. The employee continued. "If you're paying by debit card, I'd prefer you pay first because we often have network issues." So Vincent said, "Sure, that's fine." Then Vincent reached into his back pocket where he always kept his wallet, but it was empty. He paused, then checked his other pocket. Nothing. He opened the door and searched the front seat under the dashboard between the seats. Still nothing. He climbed into the back seat and rummaged through his bag, his documents. Still nothing. His heart started beating faster. "My wallet," he said breathlessly. His face slowly changed. "Where is my wallet?" He looked at the attendant. "Give me a minute, please." Vincent jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine right away. As he headed back to the supermarket, he murmured, "Please, Lord, let it be there. Let me find my wallet there." It contained everything: important business cards, American driver's license, and other vital IDs. A few minutes later, he rushed into the supermarket. He went straight to the cashier and said, "Excuse me, please. I was here about an hour ago. I think I lost my wallet. Has anyone seen it?" The cashier looked at him carefully. "You're the one who bought the snacks, right?" said Vincent, trying to stay calm. The cashier nodded. "Yes. A young woman found a wallet a few minutes after you left. She turned it in to our security supervisor." Vincent sighed in relief. "Thank God. Can I speak to him?" "Let me call him," said the cashier. She went out to call the security guard and returned with a tall man in a dark blue uniform and a badge that read, "Mr. Amos." "Good evening, sir." "Good evening," replied Vincent. "Good evening," said the man. "I lost my wallet this morning. I was here to buy items. The cashier just told me someone found a wallet and turned it in." The man nodded. "Yes, sir. A young woman dropped off a wallet here not long ago. But do you have proof it's yours?" "Yes," said Vincent quickly. "My business cards are inside. My name is Vincent Benjamin. You'll also see an ID photo." The security guard opened a small drawer next to the counter and pulled out the black wallet. He opened it and saw the business cards and photo. He turned to Vincent. "You're right. It's yours." He handed him the wallet. Vincent opened it slowly, checking each side. Everything was still there. The money, the documents, the cards. Nothing was missing. He gripped the wallet tightly and turned to them. "Where is the lady? The one who returned it?" The cashier smiled. She didn't say much. She had just come to buy snacks and a drink. She saw the wallet outside and brought it in. Vincent blinked. "She didn't leave a number." "No, sir," replied the cashier. "She didn't even wait for a thank you." Vincent paused, then asked for a small piece of paper and a pen. He carefully wrote down his phone number. He folded the paper and handed it to the cashier. "Please," he said, "if she ever comes back here, give her this. Tell her to call me." "Okay, sir." The cashier nodded. Vincent reached into his wallet, pulled out some Naira notes, and handed them to the cashier and security guard. Thank you, he said, not just for keeping it safe, but for being part of an honest act. They both thanked him with big smiles. But as Vincent walked back to his car, he looked around in hopes of seeing the woman who had been so kind and honest in returning his wallet. She was gone, but something in his heart told him this wouldn't be the last time they met. That night, Vincent lay awake in his large bedroom. The lights were off, but his eyes were open. He tossed and turned, but sleep refused to come. His thoughts kept returning to the kind young woman from the supermarket, the one who had returned his wallet without taking anything. He placed his hand on his chest and stared at the ceiling. Wow. She proved there are still honest people, he murmured. She saw that money and didn't touch it. He sat up in bed and slowly shook his head. I don't even know her name, he said softly. I wish she had left a number. I wish I could thank her myself. I hope she comes back, he said. She really deserves to be rewarded. People like her are rare. So rare. 3 weeks later, Caroline returned to the same supermarket. She had finally saved a little money and wanted to shop for herself and her younger siblings, Daniel and Blessing. As Caroline pushed a cart through the entrance, she looked tired but focused. She didn't notice the cashier at the counter waving at her. "Excuse me, ma'am," called the cashier. Caroline kept walking. "Ma'am, excuse me." Still no response. But someone tapped Caroline's arm and whispered, "Hey, the cashier is calling you." Caroline turned slowly. The cashier hurried over with a small smile. "Good morning, ma'am," she said kindly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but someone asked me to give you this." She handed her a folded piece of paper. Caroline blinked, surprised. "Who gave you this?" she asked. The cashier's smile widened. "The man whose wallet you returned a few weeks ago. He told me if you ever came back, to give you this." Caroline froze. Her fingers tightened slightly on the paper. She looked at it. There was a phone number written on it. Her heart beat faster. She hadn't expected anything. Not after 3 weeks. She had even forgotten about it. "Oh, okay. Thank you," she said softly. The cashier nodded. "He seemed very serious about wanting to thank you," she added. Caroline folded the paper and kept it in her hand as she continued shopping. But her mind was no longer fully focused on the store. She kept thinking about the paper and what it might mean. On the way home, she carefully tucked the paper into her shopping bag. Back in their small apartment, she dropped the bag in a corner and headed straight to the kitchen. Later that evening, during dinner, Caroline's little sister had unpacked the groceries from the supermarket and was cleaning up. She gathered the used paper bags Caroline had brought from the supermarket and threw them in the trash bin in front of the house. She had no idea there was a phone number inside one of the paper bags. And when Caroline remembered, it was already too late. The next morning, Caroline woke up with a light heart. Then her mind went back to the paper the cashier had given her, the one with Vincent's phone number. She smiled softly. Today, I'll call him. Later that day, as Caroline was about to call him, she opened her handbag to look for the phone number. Then she paused. She suddenly remembered she had slipped the piece of paper into the shopping bag she had brought from the supermarket. She called out quickly, "Blessing, Blessing," came the reply from outside the house. When she came in, Caroline said, "Please, help me check the paper bag I brought yesterday. There's a small piece of paper inside." Blessing froze for a moment, then replied, "It's important because I already threw it out yesterday." Caroline's eyes widened. Oh no. Without thinking, she ran barefoot across the street straight to the large green trash bin at the corner. She didn't care who saw her. She reached the bin, opened the lid, but it was empty. Completely empty. The garbage truck had already come. Caroline stood frozen. Her heart tightened. She looked down at the empty bin and felt a tightness in her chest. Her hands fell to her sides. Her legs weakened. She slowly sat down on the sidewalk next to the bin. She stared at the ground and murmured, "My God, why now? How is this possible?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, silent and steady. But after a few minutes, she wiped her face with the hem of her dress. She stood up and said softly to herself, "If it's meant to happen, it will still happen." She thought about going back to the supermarket to tell the cashier, maybe ask for the number again. But as she turned to leave, she stopped. She didn't want to seem desperate. So she took a deep breath and slowly walked back home. But deep down, something still held on to hope. 2 weeks passed, and life went on. Caroline went back to work on the site, waking up early and coming home late as usual. Then one Saturday morning, her neighbor knocked on her door. "Caroline," she said, "there's a free aid service at the local government secretariat. They're distributing food, books, and even free drinks. It's a big real estate agency. You should go with your siblings. I'll be there too." Caroline nodded. "Let's go." When they arrived, the place was full but calm. People were queuing. Volunteers were handing out bottles of water, drinks, and packets of rice. Caroline was given a small packet of rice and tomato paste. As she turned to leave, something caught her eye. Near the drink stand, a woman was helping serve juice. Her face looked familiar. Caroline looked again. It was the supermarket cashier. The woman looked up, squinted, then beamed a smile. "It's you. You're the one who returned the wallet, right?" Caroline smiled too. "Yes, ma'am, it's me. But I lost the number you gave me." The woman's smile widened. She leaned in and whispered, "The man is here. He's the one sponsoring this whole event." Caroline's heart skipped a beat. She froze. Her eyes slowly scanned the crowd. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? The cashier looked around for a moment, then gently pointed to a black SUV parked quietly in the corner of the lot. "That's him," she said with a smile. "It's the man sitting in that SUV. Let me go tell him you're here." Caroline's eyes widened. She shook her head vigorously. No, please, it's not necessary," she said softly. "I didn't come for that." But the cashier had already turned and was heading toward the SUV with a wide smile. Caroline stood there frozen. Her heart pounded. She felt her hands sweating. A few seconds later, she saw the cashier approach the car, lean in slightly and speak to the man inside, pointing at Caroline. Then the man got out. It was Vincent. He looked in the direction the cashier indicated. Then his gaze met Caroline's. He walked slowly toward her. When he reached her, he stopped and smiled softly. "I finally found you," he said in a calm voice. Caroline smiled shyly. "Good morning, sir." "What's your name?" Vincent asked. "I'm Caroline," she said in a soft but clear voice. Vincent nodded and smiled again, slowly shaking his head. "You have no idea how long I've been looking for you," he said. Caroline looked down, then replied, "I lost the number the cashier gave me. I kept it in a bag, but my siblings threw it out." Vincent smiled slightly. "I'm sorry about that. But maybe today wasn't a mistake. Maybe we were meant to meet here." He looked at her kindly. "How did you hear about this event?" Caroline replied. "A neighbor told me, so I decided to come. It's nice. I'm really glad you came." Then he pulled out his phone and handed it to her. "Please type your number here," he said. Caroline took the phone with both hands and carefully dialed her number. Then he immediately gave her a missed call so she could save it. "Call me when you get home," Vincent said softly. Caroline gave a big smile. "Okay, sir," she replied in a joyful voice. Before leaving, Vincent pulled a small brown envelope from his car. He handed it to her gently. "Just a little something," he said. "Use it for your groceries." Caroline's eyes filled with gratitude. She clutched the envelope to her chest. "Thank you, sir. God bless you," she said. Vincent smiled again, nodded, then turned to the group of organizers nearby. Caroline turned and started walking toward the main road. She reached the bus stop, waited a few minutes, and then a small yellow bus heading to her neighborhood arrived. As she boarded the bus, Caroline squeezed into a small space at the back. The bus was already full and the noise of traffic filled the air. She sat down quickly, placing her handbag on her lap. A few minutes later, the bus began to slow down. They had reached her stop. Caroline hurriedly opened her handbag to pull out money to pay the driver. But right on top of the money was her phone. Without thinking, she lifted the phone and placed it gently on her lap to reach the cash underneath. The driver then shouted, "Ma'am, where's the money? Please get off. You're holding me up." Caroline grabbed the money, handed it to him, then quickly took her bag and the packet of rice she had received at the event. In the rush to get off before the bus took off, she forgot the one thing she had placed on her lap: her phone. She stood up hurriedly, got off the bus, and joined the crowd on the sidewalk. The bus door closed behind her, and the driver pulled away. In the moving bus, Caroline's phone rolled quietly from the seat to the floor unnoticed by anyone. She had no idea what she had just forgotten. Not yet. Back home, she opened her bag to pull out her phone. She wanted to call Vincent and thank him again, but the phone was gone. That's when she remembered. The phone had been on her lap, and she had stood up too quickly. Caroline sat down on the floor. Her eyes were red, but she held back her tears. She closed her eyes and murmured softly, "God, you are faithful." Despite the pain, she still believed. Later that evening, Vincent was sitting in his living room, his heart overflowing with excitement. He smiled to himself as he recalled Caroline's shy smile, her soft voice, and the sparkle in her eyes when he gave her the envelope. He wanted to hear her voice again. He picked up his phone and dialed the number she had entered earlier, but it didn't ring. It went straight to voicemail. "This number is deactivated." He paused, then tried again. Still off. Maybe her phone battery is low, he thought, or maybe she turned it off to rest. He waited about 30 minutes and tried again. Still unavailable. Vincent leaned back on the couch. A strange feeling began to wash over him. "Why is the phone always off?" he murmured. The next morning, he was restless. He dressed quietly, got in his car, and went back to the same supermarket. When he arrived, he headed straight to the checkout. "Good morning," he greeted. The woman looked up and smiled. "Good morning, sir." "Please," said Vincent. "Do you happen to know where this young woman lives? The one who returned my wallet?" "Caroline." The cashier paused, then shook her head. "No, sir. She never told us where she lived. She came to shop and left." Vincent's shoulders slumped slightly. He nodded slowly and forced a smile. "All right. Thank you." As he walked back to his car, his mind was full of questions. Had she blocked me? Had something happened to her? He didn't know what to think. He sat in his car for a few minutes, silent, staring out the windshield. Then he started the engine and drove home. 2 days later, Vincent decided to visit a relative. He thought it might help clear his mind. As he drove down a quiet street not far from the outskirts of the city, something caught his eye. An elderly woman was sitting near a small wooden stall. Her head was resting against the dusty wall, her legs stretched out on the ground. A few bananas were on the table. At first glance, she looked like someone he had seen before. He slowed down a bit, eyes still fixed on her. As he got closer, his eyes locked on her face. His chest tightened. He looked again, more certain. "Yes, it's her," he murmured. Vincent pulled over gently by the roadside, turned off the engine, and got out quietly. He approached slowly, watching her carefully. Then his heart skipped a beat. He knew her. Vincent walked up and called softly, "Mama!" The old woman woke up quickly. She looked scared. It was Vincent's childhood nanny. "Please, who are you?" she asked in a weak voice. Vincent smiled softly. "It's me, Vincent, the son of Benjamin, husband of Isabella." The woman's eyes widened. She sat still for a moment, studying his face. Then she covered her mouth with both hands. "Benjamin," she asked. "Your father is Benjamin, and your mother, Isabella?" Vincent nodded. "Yes, Mama." The woman let out a small cry of joy and hugged him tightly. "My son," she said. "You've grown so much. I carried you on my back. I worked for your parents many years ago. Oh, God is wonderful." Vincent smiled and took her hands. "Mama, what are you doing here? Why are you sleeping outside?" The old woman sighed and looked away. "It's a long story, my son." Vincent didn't need to hear more. He gently took her arm. "Come, I'll take you home." Without hesitation, she followed. He helped her into his car, and they drove off quietly. When they arrived at his place, he offered her a warm room to sleep in, clean clothes, and food. The next morning, Vincent entered her room and greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, Mama," he said. The old woman sat up slowly and looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Good morning, my son," she replied. Vincent approached and wiped her tears with a handkerchief, but his voice broke as he spoke. "My son, may God bless you. You don't know what you've done. You've taken me away from shame and begging." Those words hurt me deeply. Vincent looked at her and said in a calm, firm voice, "You will never beg again." And he meant it with all his heart. Then Vincent led the old woman to the living room. He offered her hot tea, then sat across from her and asked gently, "Mama, why were you lying by the roadside? What really happened?" The old woman sighed deeply. Her gaze was distant, as if seeing old memories. "My son," she began slowly, "when your parents moved to the United States, they gave me money. I was so happy. I used it to start a small business. I began selling foodstuffs at a local market. I even rented a small apartment." Vincent listened quietly, nodding. "At first, everything was fine," she continued. "But years later, the business started declining. Food prices went up. People weren't buying like before. My goods started spoiling. Sometimes I'd stay at the market all day without selling much." Her voice weakened. "One day my landlord asked me to pay rent. I begged him for time, but he refused. A few weeks later, he came with 2 men and threw my things out." Vincent's eyes widened. "What did he do?" The old woman nodded sadly. "Yes, my son. I packed my bags and moved into my little shop. It was the only roof I had left. I slept there every night." She paused. Her hands trembled slightly. "Then one night, around midnight, I was sleeping on the floor in the shop. Suddenly 5 men burst in. They broke down the door. I tried to scream, but one of them pointed a gun at me. They stole all the money I'd earned that month. They took my phone and the most valuable goods." If Vincent was already leaning forward, hands clasped, she continued. "The next month, the shop owner came and said, 'If you don't pay rent, leave.' I cried. I begged, but he locked the shop and evicted me." Tears slowly rolled down Vincent's cheeks. He covered his mouth and looked away, trying to stay strong. "Mama," he murmured, "how did all this happen?" The old woman nodded. Her lips trembled. The pain was heavy in Vincent's heart. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. He could only sit there, gaze lost in space. After that long and painful conversation with the old woman, Vincent went into his office and sat quietly for a few minutes. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number. It was his site engineer. "Good morning, sir," the engineer answered. "Good morning," said Vincent calmly. "I have a special assignment for you." "I'm listening, sir." "I want you to build a 4-bedroom house," said Vincent. "Keep it simple but sturdy. It needs to be ready in 2 months." 2 months? Repeated the engineer. "Yes," said Vincent. "It's for someone very special. She'll move in once it's done." The engineer paused, then replied, "All right, sir. Consider it done." Construction started the following week. The house rose brick by brick. It was located not far from the quiet neighborhood of the city, peaceful and safe. Weeks passed, and on a sunny afternoon, Vincent decided to visit the site. He wanted to check on the progress. He arrived in his black SUV, got out slowly, and surveyed the surroundings. The structure was half finished. The roof wasn't on yet, but the walls were already up. As Vincent approached the building, something caught his eye. A young woman wearing a dusty scarf and a long old t-shirt was walking past him with a heavy block on her head. She was focused, looking nowhere else, but her face seemed familiar. Vincent paused. His heart beat a little faster. He squinted and murmured, "Wait, is that her?" He took a step forward, then another. The woman kept approaching with the block in hand. Sweat dripped down her face. Her hands were covered in cement. Vincent called softly, "Caroline." The woman froze. She turned slowly and her gaze met his. "Sir," she said in a voice almost breaking. "You again?" They stood there, both surprised, both confused, both full of questions. Vincent approached and looked her straight in the eyes. "You know," he began softly, "the day I was told a young woman had found my wallet full of money and returned it when she had every chance to take it, I was amazed." Caroline said nothing. Her eyes stayed fixed on him. Vincent continued, "I planned a reward worthy of you. I even waited for your call. But now, seeing you here, carrying blocks under the scorching sun, doing the kind of work only men do, and knowing you still returned that wallet without touching the money." He paused, slowly shaking his head. "Incredible. It intrigues me even more." Then, in a calm and firm voice, he said, "Right now, I need you to drop that block and come with me." Caroline's fingers tightened around the block. She looked up at him, silent, uncertain. What plan had Vincent prepared for her? And now that he has seen her true struggles, what will he do next? Will this exact moment mark the beginning of their love story? Stay tuned for the next part. Thank you so much for following this story to the end of the first part. If you enjoyed this story and want me to continue it, leave a comment below saying, "Continue the story." Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell to be among the first to know when the next part is uploaded. Thank you again for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you for the continuation.